Okay, well, we'll make a start, and then hopefully anyone joining us can catch up. So I'm going to share my screen with some slides. Whilst I'm doing that, let me introduce myself and welcome you to this webinar. So my name is Laura Charleton, and I'm just going to check with Wadana if you can see the slides.
Yes, I can, Laura.
Yeah, fantastic. So my name is Laura Charleton. I'm a senior lecturer at Kent Law School at the University of Kent. It's a pleasure to speak to you today. I'm wondering, whilst I speak to you through the screen, which is always a bit strange, whether you'd like to let us know where you are in the world. So there is a chat function. You're welcome to use the chat function to ask questions. There's also a Q&A function. So however you ask your question, we'll endeavour to answer it along the way and at the end of the session. But perhaps if you're happy to put into the chat where you're joining us from today. So I'm on our Canterbury campus in Kent in the UK, and I'll be telling you a little bit about that campus shortly. I used to be a criminal barrister, so the modules that I teach on at the University of Kent are criminal law. So I convene that module, which many of our students take in their first year of study. I also this year teach on the law of evidence. That's an optional module that our students can choose to take in their third year of study. So thinking about how the pieces of information get into the courtroom. I've taught on the Introduction to English Legal System module this year. And over the years, I've taught on a variety of other modules also, including the family law module. Part of my responsibilities at the law school is that I'm Director of Recruitment and Admissions, hence why I'm talking to you today, which is an absolute pleasure. I'm joined today by one of our current students. So Wadana, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course, Laura. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Wadana. I'm a final year law student. I'm also on campus in my accommodation, but it's great seeing, well, I can't see, but it's great to know that there's so many students interested in studying law in any capacity. And I'm looking forward to interacting with you, answering your questions, and just giving you a bit of an insight into what it means to be a law student at Kent Law School.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for you being here today, Wadana. It's a busy time of year. Assessments are probably becoming due, and it's a lovely sunny afternoon here today. But so really grateful for you to spend the time to join us today. So from the chat, I can see that we have some people joining us from Kent, which is fantastic, not too far away. And age is absolutely no barrier also. Definitely not. So what I thought I would cover today is what you might want to know about what it's like to study law as an undergraduate student at Kent. So I will talk about a little bit about why it is you might want to study law, and also then talk to you about the ethos of Kent Law School. So what we're known for, what our approach to the study of law is, tell you a little bit about the other academics. I'm one of about 100 academics at the law school itself, and then talk to you about what you can study, what you'll study on the various courses, and the co-curricular opportunities available to you. I can see from the chat that we have more people from Kent and also someone from Hungary joining us, which is fantastic. You're very welcome. Feel free to use the chat to ask questions along the way, and we'll pick those up towards the end if we haven't answered them already. And actually, one more question for you before we get started. So I'm interested to know, what's your interest in studying law? So why is it that you are interested in taking law at university? If you're willing to let us know, it would be interesting for us to see why you're interested in studying law. And in fact, whilst you're thinking about that, perhaps typing it in, Wadana, would you mind telling us why you chose to study law at university?
Of course, Laura. So I always had a profound interest in sort of research, debating and kind of interacting with people. And I felt as though this sort of nexus almost was best sought in law. And although it is very lucrative, I think the holistic approach that you take when you're studying law and when you're actually applying the law is something that was best reflected in these interests that I had. And so I just found it not only like very interesting in knowing how society is changing and how regulations sort of impact that, but more so the intellectual stimulation that you get from studying a degree like law. There's always something new, there's always something to debate about, and there's always something to think about. And I think that was something that was very important when I was choosing the degree that I wanted to study.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thanks, Wadana. And as I say, feel free to pop in the chat why you might be interested in studying law. There are a multitude of reasons, I think, why people choose to study law. And often it's to become a lawyer, which makes sense. So studying for a law degree can certainly help you on your journey towards becoming a lawyer, but it isn't the only reason. And indeed, Wadana, from what you were saying there, that wasn't really your guiding sort of focus, choosing to study law. So I've put some other suggestions about why you might be thinking about studying law here on the slide. And as you'll notice, as you look down and you see the potential reasons, the way that we think about law is it's much more sort of vibrant. It's a more alive subject than just learning rules in a book, basically. So none of these reasons here for why you want to study law are simply because you want to sort of learn rules and parrot fashion learn them and apply them to situations. The law is kind of alive, and so recognizing the impact it can have on our lives absolutely is a good reason to study the law. In fact, as I'm talking and I'm seeing the comments coming into the chat, it's really interesting, and thank you for sharing with us some of the reasons why you're thinking of studying law. And already those who have commented, I can see that your sort of rationale for wanting to study law is much more than just becoming a lawyer. It's about understanding the impact law has on our lives. When you think about it, so much of what we can do, what we can't do, what we're entitled to do, our relationships to other people, the relationships between countries across borders is impacted by the law. And so studying the law, one of the reasons why you might wish to study is to make a difference. So being able to use the law to understand it might mean that you can make a difference to your own lives and to those of others. It's really interesting to see in the comments that I can see coming in that some people have different areas of interest in law already. So human rights has just been mentioned, absolutely. And it might be that there is a particular area of law that you would like to study as part of a broader degree studying the law. Certainly what seems to be in common with everyone's comments here is the kind of the questions, the interest in asking questions, in better understanding, in discussing things, in debating things. And these are skills that you develop as you study law, along with your skills of argument. And of course, being able to mount that argument means you can advocate on behalf of yourself, but also on behalf of others. So it's really interesting for me to see the different reasons as to why you might want to study law. And in particular, it's very pleasing to see that for no one, you simply wish to study law because you're interested in learning rules and applying them to situations. Now, that approach to the study of law, we would call the black letter approach to study. And that's not something that we do here at Kent Law School. Of course, it's very important to know what the law is, to be able to find it and to understand it. But at Kent Law School, our sort of ethos, our reputation, what we're known for is as a critical law school. And to give an explanation as to what that means, we have on the slide here a quote from our head of law school, Professor Rosemary Hunter. And she says, as you can see here, that a critical approach to law means not just taking it for granted. In other words, not just accepting, the words on the page, the judgments from the court as the law, but we encourage our students to ask questions about it. So why is the law the way it is? We often approach law from a historical perspective, because by understanding what's gone before, it can help us understand why the law is as it is now. We think about the social and political and economic impacts that law has, and that happens to law. In particular then, so we don't think about law in a box. It's not sort of separate from everything else, but we think about law's connections. And as part of that, a critical approach to the study of law is thinking about power. So who holds power, how law is being used in favour of some people and to the detriment of others. So we think about whose interests it serves. And as some of your comments fed into, we think about how the law could be used in a more fairer way, in a more inclusive way, and more effectively. So we know that there are massive global problems at the moment. Is law part of the solution to those problems? Has it been, in fact, part of the making of those problems? That's how we approach law at Kent. And so our students, ultimately, yes, we want our students to know the law and do their best to understand it, but also we want our students to question the law and to think about how we can live better with the law. In a nutshell, that's what a critical approach to the study of law is. And Kent has a long tradition of critical legal education. So we were the first law school, one of the first in the country, to bring this critical approach to the study of law. I wonder, Wadana, can you say a few words about how this has shaped your law degree and how you feel about studying at a critical law school?
Of course, I think it's, as Laura mentioned earlier, it's so important to appreciate the law in its wider context and look at it from a holistic point of view. And I think Kent really does emphasize on that and really does do that. But in particular, I really have, like, over the last 3 years, I really had the opportunity to think about the law beyond what is written on paper, and sort of understand why it is the way it is and how it's impacted the impact that it's caused, like how has it impacted people. And I think that's something that I really appreciated, and that sort of built on my critical thinking skills, is to not only challenge, because typically when you think of critical, you just think of, okay, you're just going against something, but more so appreciating things for the way that they are and how could they be improved. And that kind of translates into producing work that is not only a reflection of what is being asked of you, but I think also developing as a thinker, and having more nuanced thinking. And I think Kent Law School really does facilitate that vision. And certainly being a critical thinker has also really helped me, when I'm thinking about the future steps of my career, for instance, wanting to become a commercial solicitor and, filling out applications, how I would do that, what would set me apart. And I think, Kent Law School is a great base for that. So.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Wadana. The photo of Professor Rosemary Hunter, so I mentioned she's our head of law school. So just to give you a flavour for the different academics at the law school. So her area of expertise is family law, and she recently was made an honorary King's Counsel, a KC, for her work in research of the family law, in particular in relation to domestic abuse. So her research has led to changes in legislation. And Rosemary and myself then were just two of the academics at the law school. As I say, there's about 100 academics, and each of us has our own area of expertise and interest. Some, like myself, are practitioners or previous practitioners. Others are world-leading researchers in particular aspects of the law. And so here on the screen, you have some recent publications or soon to be published books from some of my colleagues. And I thought it was just nice to show you a flavour of the different areas of expertise amongst my colleagues. You'll notice that there are some tort law books on the screen. So Professors Kirsty Horsey and Erica Rackley are leading tort law experts. So the law of tort encompasses things like negligence, for example. It's thinking about situations where someone owes a duty of care to someone else because of the situation that they're in. And their tort law books are actually used as textbooks in many of the universities across the country. Here, though, they are the module conveners for our tort law module. You'll also notice that there are some intellectual property publications up on the screen here, but also matters in relation to law and technology, so digitalization, for example, with access to justice. And then there are some international related law books here also, and human rights as well. So just a flavour of the different areas of expertise that my colleagues have, to the extent that we are currently ranked second in the country out of 69 law schools in the Research Excellence Framework exercise, the REF. And this ranking of second of the law schools in the country comes about because of the national and international impact of the research of my colleagues. Now, I wouldn't want you to have the impression that the colleagues who research are sort of shut away in a dark room somewhere, inaccessible to you, because in fact they are the lecturers and the seminar leaders that you interact with during your studies. Wadana, give us a flavour of, you know, what are the opportunities to interact with the lecturers here at Kent?
So every lecturer here has their respective office hours, so you can always pop by in there during their office hours. That is basically the time of the week or multiple days of the week. They might have multiple times where you can just pop by, have a chat about anything that is, you know, concerning you regarding the module. Or if any of the office hours don't suit you, just pop them an email. I do it either ways, whether I'm going for an office hour, I just, you know, let them know in advance. And honestly, it's quite phenomenal that we have such a range of academics here with such diverse backgrounds in what they do. I remember my first year when I was writing my public law coursework, I kind of had like an epiphany where I was citing my seminar leader who's going to mark my work, like his work I was citing, and it was quite amazing to think that, you know, the people who are writing these renowned articles, books that are really taken into consideration by the legal world is essentially they're teaching you. And I think that's so amazing. And as Laura said, they're not hiding away in any dark room. They're always available. Their offices are around campus. So feel free to just pop by and just say hello even, and just, you know, be like, you know, I'd really admire the work that you're doing. So yeah, I just pop them an email typically.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Thanks, Wadana. And some of the work that my colleagues are currently working on. So actually, Professor Horsey is a surrogacy law expert. So she's recently been seconded to work with a charity to conduct some research to hear the voices of children involved in surrogacy for the first time. And another one of my colleagues, Dr. Connell Parsley. So he has recently secured a massive funding bid to look at automated decision making. So just before the sort of ChatGPT explosion, if you like, he was already looking at whether we need, I suppose, human judges anymore, or whether we can defer decision making to sort of an automated computer generated being, if you like. And so, yeah, just a couple of examples of the work of my colleagues. So what can you study with us at Kent Law School? Most of our students join us on the Single Honours Law LLB. So that's a 3-year course, the course that Wadana is studying. And Wadana has reached her 3rd year with us. But it's not the only route that you can take to study law here at Kent. It might be that you wish to combine the study of law with something else, so to take a joint honours degree. This is still studied over 3 years. It's not that you study more than a single honours degree, but your time is spent a little differently. So some of the time you are taking law classes from Kent Law School, but then for part of your time you are taking classes delivered by the school of the discipline that you're also studying. So for example, if you have a particular interest in politics, and you wish to study it at degree level whilst also studying law, you could look at the Law and Politics LLB, studied over 3 years. Or maybe you're interested, as Wadana mentioned, in a sort of commercial career, and you would like to study some modules from Kent Business School. You could look at the Law and Management Joint Honours. Of course, myself as a criminal practitioner, the idea of studying law and criminology fits very nicely together. So do take a look at our joint honours LLBs, but across all of those, you'll study the foundations of legal knowledge, which are the key legal modules required for onward qualification in this country. And I'll tell you a bit more about that in a moment. Now, it is possible to study abroad for a year as part of your law degree. So you would be looking at our International Legal Studies LLB. Now, this is a 4-year course. So you study your first 2 years here at Kent with us, and then you study abroad for a year. That year abroad is studied in English with one of our partner universities across the world, and I've listed the destinations of our current partners. And then you return for your final year of study, your 4th year of study with us here in Kent. So this is the opportunity to study an English law degree, but having that bonus year, if you like, studying the law of another jurisdiction in English. Now, I don't know everyone who's watching today, your personal circumstances, but it might be that you already hold a degree, perhaps from the UK, perhaps from other destinations. And if you do, but you're looking to study law at an undergraduate level, then you might be interested in our 2-year law graduate entry LLB. So this is an expedited law degree over 2 rather than 3 years, because you already come to us with graduate attributes. Other courses to bring your attention to. So the courses that I've spoken about so far in terms of our single honours, our joint honours and international legal studies, typically the standard offer for those courses is 2 A's and a B at A level, or the equivalent courses. So if you're studying or have studied BTEC, or if you have studied or are studying the IB, the International Baccalaureate, if you are studying an access to higher education course, then these are all qualifications that we can take into consideration for an offer to study with us. And if you're studying elsewhere in the world with qualifications specific to that particular country, then we make an equivalent offer for the qualifications that you're studying. If you are studying or have studied and you're concerned that your grades are not near that sort of level of achievement, then you might want to consider our Law with a Foundation Year LLB. So this is a 4-year course. The first year is the foundation year. So this is a year to consolidate the academic skills that you're already developing and to improve and expand your academic skills, ready to then join us for the 3 years of the law degree. So your foundation year comes first, and then you join us for 3 years on the degree. And to give you an idea, the typical offer for this course is 3 C's at A level or equivalent. So if you're thinking to yourself, oh, my predicted grades or my achieved grades are somewhere between that span, then I would recommend that you apply to us for for the course that you wish to study. And if that is the 3-year law degree, then rest assured we do look not just at your academic achievement, but also at your personal statement to read about you, to see why you're motivated to study the law, to see what experience you bring to your studies and the journey that you've taken so far. And we also look at your reference as well. Now, the last course I want to bring to your attention is the M-Law in Advanced Legal Practice. So this is a course that is specifically for those interested in becoming a solicitor. Now, how you qualify as a solicitor in this country has changed in recent years. And the response that we have put together is to create an integrated master's course. So that means that you study 3 years of law with the other law students, and then you stay on and study a 4th year at master's level, and you graduate after that 4th year with an M-Law in Advanced Legal Practice. And so that 4th master's year is to prepare you for the Solicitors Qualifying Exam, the SQE. So the SQE is in 2 parts. The first part is the sort of knowledge-based part, and the second part is the practical part. And so much of what you study on a law degree will be tested in the knowledge part, but there are aspects that are specific to solicitors that you wouldn't ordinarily cover on the 3-year law degree. So this M-Law year is the year to cover things like litigation, criminal litigation, civil litigation, matters relating to property law that go beyond what you would normally study on a law LLB, matters of taxation, wills, and so on. Now, if you're interested in becoming a solicitor, then do take a look at the M-Law in Advanced Legal Practice. Of course, we recognise that not everyone knows that they wish to become a solicitor at the start of their undergraduate journey. And so if you joined us on one of the other degrees, then you could look into changing onto the M-Law in due course. And equally, of course, if you start on the M-Law and decide that your career choices have changed and you no longer wish to become a solicitor, then we could look to move you off of that course onto our single honours LLB, because we wouldn't want you to take that 4th year of study unnecessarily. Wadana, I've been speaking for a while now about the range of courses that people can study. We know you said that you're on the 3-year law LLB. Why did you choose that particular course?
To be honest, it was primarily because that's the one that I resonated with the most. I really enjoyed like the foundations of legal knowledge, and then particularly in my final year, I had the liberty to choose the modules that I wanted to take, and I think that was extremely beneficial in me taking charge of my learning, especially for the path that I wanted to pursue later on, which is become a practicing lawyer, that of a solicitor. And I felt as though that final year where I had that liberty was very beneficial in me learning about different areas, even though I might not want to specialize in them, but just having a feel for what it is. And also because it was just the course that I just genuinely enjoyed, because it was very straightforward. I wouldn't say straightforward because they all are straightforward, but very focused without that joint honors. And I personally didn't have an interest in the joint honors, but a lot of my friends, they are doing joint honors and they seem to enjoy it incredibly. So.
Sorry, Wadana, I muted myself to cough and forgot to put my unmute. Yeah, excellent. And Wadana talked about her module choices. So let me move on my screen here to talk about those modules that you can study with us. So I mentioned the foundations of legal knowledge earlier. So these are the core foundational legal subjects that you cover on a law degree. And as you can see, criminal law is mentioned there, the module that I convene, along with the law of contract and tort, property law, public law, equity and trusts, and law of the European Union. So when you join us to study at Kent, your first year of study is compulsory in as much as you have no choice as to the modules that you study, because we design our course to introduce you to these foundational legal areas of knowledge, and we develop your skills as we go along. But as you move through your course, so you'll have the opportunity to select the modules that you wish to study, which, as Wadana said, is great because you are able to sort of shape how your degree looks, the modules that you're studying. And so amongst the academic staff here at Kent, no surprise that there's a variety of different areas of law available for you to choose on an optional basis. Some of the areas of law are listed here on the slide that are current modules that can be taken by our students. Some areas of law that affect our everyday life, like family law, employment, housing, matters around medical law and health. You'll see that we have areas of law relating to law and technology, so matters of privacy and data protection, for example. We have a suite of international law modules looking at different aspects of international law, the law of evidence that I mentioned earlier that I teach on. Wadana, what optional modules have you chosen, or any particular modules that kind of stand out to you that you've particularly enjoyed, or been different to what you were expecting?
Of course. So I'm doing company law, comparative law, international law, labor law, international economic law, and the clinic module. I think two of the ones that have really stood out to me is definitely company law. I think it's so engaging, and you really learn the nitty-gritties of how companies work and how they interact in sort of with individuals, and the sort of the not only the basics, but sort of you understand how the commercial world works. But I think comparative law has definitely been something that I really enjoyed. And I think it's just, that is, I think, the greatest, I think it's the best way to sort of put what critical law really is that you really appreciate how, for instance, the laws that are national laws, how they are similar, different, or create a friction between other jurisdictions, and sort of looking at this cross-jurisdictional remit is so interesting, and I think that really helps you in terms of having a broader mindset and appreciating other jurisdictions and looking at your own and understanding how there's an interaction and why laws are the way they are. Like, for instance, something that we're looking at is like legal translation, and how important it is to be able to translate the law for what it is. And for instance, some jurisdictions, the laws are written in that particular language, and how translation can sometimes alter the meanings. So I think that's super interesting, and that module has really stood out to me.
No, that sounds really good, Wadana. And you mentioned, the law of different jurisdictions. Of course, we have a real sort of diverse student body here at Kent Law School. So not only might you be selecting modules that cross borders and that think about the law of different jurisdictions, but equally those who you're studying with come from around the world. And I think that makes for really engaging discussions in the classroom, for example, because people bring their different perspectives. So there was a comment at the beginning about, hope I'm not too old to study law. Absolutely not. We really enjoy people bringing sort of life experience, the cultural differences, differences in faith, different perspectives to the discussion, because it really does enrich those seminar classroom discussions. Okay, so one of the options at the bottom of the screen there was the clinical option, and Wadana mentioned that you're taking that this year also. So I wanted to say a bit more about Kent Law Clinic, because the clinic sort of bridges the gap between curricular studies, so those studies for which you get marks and which will ultimately dictate the degree classification that you leave us with, and also co-curricular opportunities, so opportunities outside of the sort of curricular structures that you can also take whilst you're with us here at Kent Law School. So Kent Law Clinic, I mentioned that Kent Law School is a critical law school. That's our approach to the study of law. Equally important, I think, is the matters of societal justice at Kent Law School. And I guess the clinic is one way that this manifests itself, because the clinic is a free legal advice service for members of the public. And so, our neighbours, the community that we're based in, can come to the clinic with legal problems. Often it's people who are not able to pay for legal representation, but equally there is no financial support available for legal representation. And the clinic can provide advice, representation. The clinic can take on people's cases and see them through to fruition, which can often take, many months, if not years. And also the clinic takes on sort of special interest projects, sort of representing the community where appropriate also. So for our neighbours, for those who live and work around us, this is a useful legal advice facility. But for our students, it also provides the opportunity to see the law in action, to see the law that they're studying in their different modules come to life in people's real situations. And so students can take the clinic as a module option. And I think, Wadana, you're doing that after Christmas. But also students can volunteer to work at the clinic on a co-curricular basis. So the clinic would welcome you with open arms, frankly, because the clinic is extremely busy. And any assistance that students can provide in terms of even something like answering the telephones, which sounds quite trivial, but actually there's a skill, perhaps a dying art, in speaking on the telephone, and that could be the first point of contact between someone with a legal problem and the clinic. And of course, these legal problems, they don't come sort of neatly wrapped up, and so they often and often they're happening to people at times of crisis. And so the work of the clinic is really valuable in assisting members of the public. So on the slide here, you see some photos from the clinic. So the big photo across the bottom, that's one of the regular advice meetings or sort of catch-up meetings that the clinic holds. So students are invited in to hear about the current cases that the clinic has, to offer their suggestions. It's sort of an update meeting. Across the top of the photos, in the middle there, a gentleman who gave his permission to be photographed, a previous client of the clinic, with a couple of students. That's outside the Canterbury Combined Courts, so outside the Crown and County Court here in Canterbury. And that gentleman, the clinic helped him to get back some money that he had paid as a deposit on a sort of a static home for he and his wife. And unfortunately, circumstances changed, and the company wouldn't give him back his money. So the clinic helped to get his money back for him. And then the other photos are taken in the clinic to give you an idea of the facility. Wadana, why have you chosen to do the clinic next term?
So the reason I chose to do the clinic was because it was just a perfect example of bridging the gap between the law in practice, the law in theory versus in practice. And I wanted to really get hands-on experience as to what I've, sort of the skills I've accumulated over the last 3 years. And I really wanted to put them in practice and honestly just get ready for the future as a practicing lawyer. And as Laura said, just even like picking up the phone and speaking to a potential client, that in itself is an art. Sometimes they're so distressed on the phone that it's just the way you communicate with them that really sort of gives them that comfort, even though you're not doing it actively, but just being able to communicate coherently and appreciate that there is a distressing situation behind the phone call. So I think that's so important. And I think as studying law in itself is very challenging and it is a competitive field, but I think when you get the hands-on experience, you really appreciate and understand where your interest lies. And I think that'll be like something that I'm very keen on exploring during the clinic module next term.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the kind of unique features about our law clinic, because many universities have some form of clinic now, the unique thing about Kent Law Clinic is that it was the first university-based clinic in the country. So it's well established and it covers quite a large area of different types of law. So the clinic take on cases for matters of immigration. The clinic has helped many refugees because of where we're situated in the country. Matters of housing disputes, employment disputes, family disputes, matters in relation to benefits. And so I think, Wadana, you'll be kind of assigned to or choose a team that you'll be able to work with in the clinic, yeah, to focus on the cases in that area of law. So as I say, the clinic is one of a number of different co-curricular opportunities available to our students outside of their curricular studies. You'll notice I didn't mention criminal cases, so the clinic doesn't take on criminal matters, but there is a different scheme for that, the Student Outdoor Clerk Scheme, also known as SOCS. So this gives students the opportunity to attend local Crown courts and accompany a barrister for the day. The student sits with the barrister in the well of the court and takes a set of notes as to what happens in the proceedings. So at the end of the day, the barrister's happy because they have notes taken for them. But for the student, they've had the experience, again, of seeing the law in action and being, integral to the trial that's taking place around them. That's quite a novel scheme, and local solicitors will ring up in the afternoon and say, okay, we have a case in the Crown Court that we need clerking, and then we'll arrange students to go and attend on their behalf. We have a law review, so if you want to publish your work or if you want to be involved in the editorial process of selecting the work, then students can get involved in that. And a conference, so the photo sort of in the middle of the screen there is taken during the last student conference. It was a combined conference with undergraduate and postgraduate law students, and you might notice that Zoom is on in the background because there were participants from across the world as well presenting their work. Then we have our lawyering skills. So these are a suite of co-curricular opportunities that you can take and start to develop the sort of practical skills that might be expected of a lawyer, although some of them very much, of course, would be transferable into other professions. We have our own courtroom on campus, and so you can see that in some of the photos on the screen here. And here students can do mooting, which is learning how to make an argument orally as if you were in an appeal court. So seeking to persuade the judge as to the strength of your arguments. And then mock trials, which is at the other end of the spectrum. So imagining that you're in a trial court, a court of first instance. So the Crown Court, for example, where the court hears evidence from witnesses and then the jury determine, guilty or not guilty. And so in this module, you'd be learning the skills of handling witnesses, cross-examining and examining witnesses, making speeches to the jury and so on. And for these modules, they're academic led. So my colleagues are involved in training the students, but we also have local practitioners, solicitors, barristers, and the local judiciary come in to support the witnesses by judging the moots, support students, by judging the moots, or by playing the witnesses in the mock trials. And so this is a great opportunity to network with practicing lawyers and current judges. And quite often we hear of some work experience being secured because of these more sort of informal interactions. We have client interviewing, which of course is a great skill required for those who go into practice as a lawyer. Negotiation. So you'll notice on the slide the photo with the Gold Star Award on it. That is our team of negotiators who entered the National Sports Law Negotiation Competition last year. Well, this year, the last academic year, and they won that competition. So it was held at the football ground for Leicester. The year before, it was held at the Etihad Stadium. And so the Kent team won. And for mediation, the photo in the bottom or sort of centre of the slide is our team of mediators who attended the national mediation competition. They were placed third in that competition of all the universities who entered. Indeed, the first two place universities were Scottish, so maybe we could say we were first in England, or maybe that's a bit cheeky, but so not only can you develop the skills in an environment that feels, as close to the real thing as possible, but you can volunteer to represent Kent at several competitions nationally and sometimes even internationally. Our mooters did very well last academic year. So the bottom right-hand corner of the screen is some of our mooters who reached the finals of the OUP and ICA national mooting competition, which was, again, really impressive. Wadana, are you involved in any of the co-curricular opportunities this year at all?
Yes, so I'm doing negotiation, and I must say I thoroughly enjoy it. I think the way the sessions are conducted, the exercises that we do, and it just prepares you so well for later on, because this is part of lawyering. A lot of solicitors will end up doing negotiation and mediation because going to trial is expensive. So I think it's a great way of understanding what these lawyering skills entail and how you would put them into practice.
Excellent. I think they're quite fun as well, aren't they, to do the lawyering skills, and it's sort of relatively low stakes. Obviously, as you carry on in your training to become a lawyer, so the stakes get a bit higher, but to be able to start these skills at this stage is very beneficial. So a little bit about our student societies. Everything that I've covered so far is academic led, but our students are very active and have formed together to make a lot of different student societies. Across the university, I think I'm right in saying there's about 250 different student societies that you can join. Lots of different sporting societies, special interest, societies. I think there's like a cocktail society that caught my eye, for example, different faith societies, cultural societies, but we have 11 specific law societies also. And as you can see on the slide here, some of them are quite specific in their interests. So the Kent Art Law Society, for example, the Kent Sports Law Society, these have particular interests in mind. Others are more general. The Temple Society is particularly for those students who are interested in becoming barristers. There's the Student Law Society, more so for those becoming solicitors. The beauty of the societies is that you can join as a member in your first year, and then perhaps in your second or third year you might want to put yourself forward for a role on the committees, or perhaps even as president of the societies. And if there's a society missing, you can put together a business case to form that society. I think, well, let me hand over to Wadana. Tell us about your involvement in the societies, Wadana.
Of course. So I'm the Vice President of the Kent International Law Society and the Vice President of Professional Development for the European Law Students Association. I genuinely enjoy my roles being a part of these societies. I really resonate with the work that they do respectively. But fundamentally, it is to sort of ensure that there is student engagement and we serve the student community in activities and socials that are outside of the lecture theatre and the seminar room, and give students that space to sort of discover the type of lawyer they want to be, and just at the same time make the university experience fun. So I'll just give you a quick example. On the 2nd, for instance, of 2nd of December, Kent International Law Society, we've organized like a brunch for third year students. It's kind of like their final year of studying, but it's like their first term final year kind of a thing. And so it's kind of like it's not a farewell really, but it's kind of appreciating that this sort of first term idea is kind of coming to an end now that we're in our final years. So, you know, these kind of fun things where it's not only good to network with your fellow peers, that some of which you might not have even met until your third year, but, you know, you keep these connections for later. So I think, as Laura mentioned, you know, you really develop leadership skills as well if you're taking on a role as part of the committee. But even as a member, it's a great way of networking and just, you know, making your university experience enjoyable.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Wadana. And I think, you know, so many, especially if you're coming to join us from overseas, there's obviously a concern as to, will you meet people? Will you get to know people? And I think the student societies are a great way of doing that, because they hold social events, but and then also hold more career-focused events. They bring in speakers. It's a nice way to get to know people outside of the classroom. Just a few pictures here from another of our student ambassadors. So Morton joined us for 3 years of study on the Law LLB. So his experience at Kent was during the COVID years. So that's why you'll notice there's some sort of screenshots here. But I like to show the photos because he then stayed on to do a master's in law, and he's successfully passed that, and he's now started his PhD in law. So I guess he must like it at Kent to stay so long. But I think it's just nice to see a kind of 3-year journey. This is all from his undergraduate time here at Kent, depicted in the photographs there. You might be wondering, why are there biscuits there? He's quite the expert at finding the free food at events, and especially the biscuits. So a few words on support. Coming to university can be a big change from where you're currently studying, or indeed if there's been a long gap since you've studied. And so I thought you might want to know a little bit about the different support mechanisms that we have in place. Each student is given an academic advisor, so someone like myself from the academic staff, who's your sort of port of call, if you like, your point of contact if you have any queries about academic matters. And as Wadana mentioned earlier, all of the academics hold contact hours on a weekly basis, so you know that we're going to be available at that time. You can come ask us any questions to explain things a little clearer, perhaps if you're getting feedback on your written work, to help you to see how you can make improvements. We have a skills hub, which is a physical and a virtual space where we've collated sources of support for the academic skills that you'll be developing in essay writing, in answering problem questions, in doing legal research and referencing your work. And you can also come to make an appointment to see an academic at the Skills Hub if you have particular questions that you want answered. And then, of course, there's the things that happen in life outside of your studies that might impact your studies. So the university has a very strong student support office who are able to help you if there are issues that are impacting your studies. Wadana, did you want to say anything about the support here at Kent?
Of course. I just want to say that Kent is very big on support, and it is absolutely imperative that you reach out whenever you don't feel you're 100%. And there's always mechanisms in place that will help you and guide you to getting to sort of, I guess, to some degree, working through things. And as Laura said, whether it's personal or professional support that you require, there's always someone there to help you. Even if, for instance, you contact an individual that perhaps might not know or help you in that time regarding the situation, they will always direct you to the right person. And I believe somewhere in the chat, someone mentioned about support. And of course, you know, LSSJ support is the sort of law school, and for the law school, you know, students would refer to LSSJ support, and they cater to your needs. And they really do try and put things into place for your benefit and to help you, you know, for whatever requirements and needs you have to make sure that things are in order. So it's always important to reach out and to sort of inform them of the various needs that you have, and I'm sure they'll always help you out. So
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the law school is part of a division with a couple of other schools, and we're the Law Society and Social Justice Division. And as Wadana said, we have a support office for that division in the university. And yes, there is a disability support service. You can apply for an individual learning plan, an ILP, so that will be tailored to your particular study needs, for example. And I would very much recommend anyone taking a look on the university's website, having a look at the disability support services, because there's quite a lot of information available online, and you can always contact them and explain your particular needs so that they can help you to help to ensure that you have everything in place that you need for your studies. A brief word about where we're located. I know that some of you, based on your responses at the beginning of the session, are based in Kent, so you'll know where we are well. But for those of you who are less familiar, here's an aerial shot of our campus. So we're based in Canterbury, in the county of Kent. And you can see on the map on the right-hand side there where Canterbury is. I think I'm right in saying that we're the closest geographically university to the rest of Europe because of where we're situated. It takes about 50 minutes on the fast train from Canterbury to get into London, and you can cross the channel to get to access the rest of Europe. For those of you who perhaps are overseas and who might be considering coming to study here at Kent, Wadana, do you have any top tips or any advice about our location and how you've kind of spent your time whilst you've been here at all?
of course. So to be honest, Canterbury is a beautiful place, and it's very easy to get around. The great thing is that because our university is so big, and I would like to say that it takes up a large part of the city anyways. There's various bus stops around campus, and so the buses are quite, frequent going in and out of town, and there's the designated university buses, so the Uni 1 and the Uni 2 that will come and go throughout the day. So it's very convenient in that regard. And not only that, but our campus has such a variety of, restaurants, entertainment spots. We even have our own co-op. So, sometimes you forget things at your groceries, so you can always pop by co-op. And I think the great part about our campus is that it's very there's a lot of places to hang around and just get some breathing space. And when the weather is nice and sunny, you'll see a lot of students just playing football and running about, just like the average university students. So genuinely, I really am grateful for going to university that's so big and it's filled with greenery and just a lot of I guess freshness, to put it right. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed the time, so let me hurry up. Typical lawyer, taking too long to say something. Just thinking about, what our graduates go on to do. So here's some examples of our recent graduates or current students who have secured training contracts with some of the, the top law firms, the Magic Circle firms, and who are going on to pursue careers as barristers. We have a very strong careers and employability service here at Kent, and recently we held a law fair which attracted a number of the top firms of solicitors and barristers chambers, plus the Crown Prosecution Service were here and the court service. We have ambassadors, so law firms select current students to act as ambassadors, which I think gives you an indication as to how our students are viewed, because the firms are wanting ambassadors, they're willing to invest in that. We have a number of careers talks over the course of the academic year, and there's opportunities to do mock interviews, to have your CV checked, and we have a mentor scheme as well. I would recommend that you follow us on the social media. So the university has accounts across all the socials, but so does the law school. And this is a great way to keep up to date, find out what's happening, as well as the kind of news stories that we publish on our website. I just wanted to briefly mention Prepare for Law. So this is something that's available to our applicants. If you decide to apply to study law with us, then we will invite you to access our materials for Prepare for Law, which are a series of videos that our current students have created, and they are there to sort of bridge the gap between your current situation and coming to study at Kent. So they cover things like what it's like to be in lectures, seminars, and so on. But Prepare for Law also serves an additional purpose. So if you receive an offer from us and you choose us as your firm choice, because you'll have to choose a firm choice and an insurance choice, then we will, and if you engage with Prepare for Law, we will guarantee to accept you at 2 grades to a maximum of 16 UCAS points below your offer. So to give you an example, if your offer is AAB, and you firm choice us and you watch the Prepare for Law materials, which are not onerous, hopefully they're quite interesting, then if you got BBB, then you still have a place with us without having to think about clearing and so on. So more information about that can be found online. And if you apply to us, we'll be contacting you with information about Prepare for Law. I also wanted to bring your attention to Summer of Law. So over the past few summers, we've held webinars that we've recorded, and you can find these on YouTube. So if you search Kent Summer of Law, you'll find the recordings. Now you have to bear with us, we're not sort of movie stars, so the recording quality is it's fine, but there's the odd technical hitch. But it's a good way to get to know us, because I think it's important for you to study somewhere for 3 years that you feel happy, that you think you'll fit in. And so this is a way to see a number of my colleagues talking about their different areas of expertise and how we approach them here at Kent. Thank you so much. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. Excuse me, coughing. I can see that we've had a few questions in the chat. Hopefully we've answered them as we've gone along. Wadana, did you notice anything specifically that I ought to mention?
Yes, Laura, there was one there's actually a few. But somebody asked in the chat if I'm an international student, my positives and negatives. So I did do my schooling abroad. And I did come here for university, but I'm not an international student. But I can say in that regard, because I didn't live here prior to studying, I've honestly really enjoyed my time at Kent, and I really am going to miss it. The positives would be there's a great student support. The teaching is very thorough. And most importantly, there's a lot to learn, whether that's improving as an individual in terms of the skills you develop, or even academically. Negatives, I wouldn't say there's many negatives. It's just sometimes I think it's a question of time management, juggling all the things that you're doing, whether that's extracurricular, co-curricular, and your academia. But again, in that we have like the skills hub in place to help you and guide you through time management. Laura, there was a question regarding a personal statement. So,
yes, I see that question. Thanks, Wadana. Yeah, so absolutely, we understand that you can only make your one personal statement, although you're applying to 5 different courses. And so, of course, you might be applying to study law and criminology with us, just law elsewhere, or vice versa. Or maybe you're applying to study law with us and then something completely different. That's absolutely fine. My advice would be to try to incorporate all interests within that personal statement. So, if I would certainly say something about your interest in criminology if you're applying to study a course that has criminology in it. Although if the emphasis or most of your applications are law, then spend more of your time with that focus. But all of us who work in admissions know that, of course, you only have the one statement across all of your courses. Yeah, definitely. I can also see there's some kind of admissions specific questions. So it's difficult to answer them without the context of your whole application. So my advice would always be to make the application. And then if we have any queries we can contact you for further information. But in general terms, take a look at our website where it has the sort of admission requirements. The age of qualifications is not necessarily any barrier at all. So see whether your qualifications are around about the sort of level that we're talking about, and we of course can take experience, sort of specifically legal experience, into account also. So it's important to say as much as you can in that personal statement. So I'm just taking a look at the specific. So I'm going to ask my colleague Chiara, who's in the background, to perhaps put an email address into the chat, which would be the best address for people to contact us on with specific admissions questions. That is probably the best way to answer your questions. So if you drop us an email, I think the admissions KV email address, perhaps Chiara, would be good, or okay, studylssj@kent.ac.uk. So yeah, do send us your specific admissions questions, and we'll very happily answer them for you. Good. I'm really conscious we've gone over time, so thank you for hanging on in there, everybody. I hope so. I see there's a question about the integrated masters, so that would, I assume, be the M-Law in advanced legal practice. So hopefully I got onto that perhaps after you asked the question. Again, though, do send us an email if you have any specific questions. Okay, fantastic. Then I think we better bring the webinar to a close. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you. Can I thank Wadana ever such a lot for joining us today? I think it's really nice for the attendees to hear a student's perspective, and I appreciate your responses. Thank you, Wadana, and thank you all. And it would be fantastic to see you studying with us in due course. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.